The Digital Rights Academy, which, like you pointed out, was a session organized by Paradigm Initiative in collaboration with the MRCG. Among other things, as part of its outcome, was to have heightened awareness of digital threats and protective measures among participants, and more so about increased adoption of secure tools in their daily journalism practice. So basically, it was to expose the journalists to the whole concept of digital rights, for them to understand tools that can make them to be secure in the online platform. Because as we know now, we are in the digital age, and the journalists themselves will need to understand how to navigate and find their way within the space. Well, the training, to my mind, was relevant for several reasons. Among other things, as we saw from the very concept notes, I would like to take some few lines on it. Among other things, we are told from the very workshop that journalists needed to be introduced to the concept of digital rights. When the journalists go out to do their work, they operate within the digital platforms, and in that platforms, there are threats in the platforms. For example, there are ways to navigate those threats, and there are tools to use. So for me, the main importance there was about increasing their knowledge about issues of digital rights. So once their knowledge is increased, the next thing for me is application. But then they themselves acknowledge the fact that they cannot do their work without the required knowledge on the digital rights, understanding the platforms, and how to secure themselves in those platforms. So basically, my session focused on digital threats. In fact, it laid the foundation. It provided the context. So among other things, we looked at whether issues of digital rights were critical or crucial to their work as a journalist. They established the fact, yes. And then there were questions as to whether there are threats relating to digital rights. Interestingly, the participants themselves pointed out those threats, issues around surveillance, issues around cyber-related laws that are used to affect their work, issues around the very access to information, issues around cyber bullying. A number of things came out from the participants. And then that showed the necessity for the initiative. Because if these threats exist, as they are in the literature, but also in practice in Sierra Leone, issues around data protection law. Because if you are talking about digital rights, first of all, we need to know what those rights are. These are rights that are related to freedom of expression. And then in that space, the pieces of information you put out, how secure are they? What is the level of protection, even for the data? We play with data every day. What is the level of protection? So even things around data protection bill came out. These are all possible threats. In essence, if you take, for example, in Sierra Leone, we are yet to have a data protection law. But then people ask us for our data every day. Almost every place we go to, they ask us for our data. But then there is no law that clearly protects our data. For me, the take home at the end of day one is the fact that the participants themselves understood the issues, and they acknowledged the need for increased knowledge and education on issues of digital rights. And what came out clearly yesterday is that such session should be a continuous process. Because even with the tools, as you learn them today, the hackers, those who have negative intentions, also learn them and try to counter them. So for me, issues around digital rights, they are evolving, and they need continuous education. That the participants acknowledged that and pointed that fact out was the major takeaway for me in yesterday's session.